Only a couple of weeks ago, the streets looked like this. As I took a pleasant journey through London, the streets are quiet, few people about. But that won't last, and I did warn you. When lockdown ends, when the danger has abated, they will all come out, and you'll miss those days. Who am I talking about? Not just the kind of people you like to talk to, but the people who want to talk to you. The orphans. The losers, some people call them, but really, let's just say the hopeless cases. They'll gravitate towards you. They'll come into your life, and they will ruin it. Why? Why do you let them in? It's a mystery, but probably one better solved in the application of a few hard and fast rules. I know you haven't been really following these damn things, but that you should be, really.
St. Paul's Cathedral.
Hello, David McMillan here, and I'm reminded at this particular time of something I recorded just quite a while back now. It was part of some crooks' rules, but really rules that could apply to anyone, anytime. And one of them was the dead wood rule. It really came from the idea I first noticed in the old television Mission Impossible series. In that, our hero was selecting people for the team and putting aside anybody who didn't have a skill and a function and of great value for the enterprise, for that Mission Impossible. Well, you may not have many impossible missions, but you certainly have ones that are important to you. During my smuggling career, I had many couriers. Some people pointlessly call them mules, but they're nothing like a mule. A mule works cheap and generally does what it's told. No. The kind of people who volunteered to be travelling around the world with drugs in their suitcase are either the kind that seem to have a natural talent for living in a fantasy world which they project and is actually very useful. But we're not talking about the good stuff here today. You will also find coming towards you people who have kind of lost out in every other field. Nothing has worked for them, and they want a job. But they want more than a job. They want to be part of your life because they like your life. They want it. Or they at least want part of it. And working for you is what they want to do. Now, here's the catch. These guys were very attracted to the criminal world. It seemed very exciting. Lots of money, travel, interesting people. The chance to present themselves as something other than that which they'd always been. That is, hopeless. The kind of people I mean are, well, if you sent the guy down to the corner shop for a packet of cigarettes and, well, I was going to say milk, but let's not complicate the thing. You would find 2-3 hours had passed, and then you'd get a call from the police. Something happened. Something bad. Your name was mentioned. Let's not forget that. Let me take you back to a hotel room. I had a London friend. He was I guess you'd say a bouncer, a bit of a handy sort of guy. Minder? Well, not really. He could stand around and look a bit intimidating. But then he'd embarrass easily, so you'd have to make very clear when he should act. And all that would make the situation hopeless because you're likely, well, the kind of people you'd need minding from would see all that going on with these hopeless people. It just wouldn't work. So they were no good as protectors. But they felt they had that skill. Though I think the skill was more being able to take a punch than give one. So, one came to me. John, he was and is, was, there was no work for him. I got him a couple of jobs looking after a couple of drug dealers who'd been preyed upon by night invaders, extortionists, that kind of thing. And what would he do? He would sit around in the guest room or even in the living room looking the part, but really he wasn't actually much use in that. He was more reassuring to the people he was looking after than anything else. But that dried up pretty quickly, and he had nowhere to go. One other thing I should say about people that attach themselves to you, I've been calling them hopeless cases, and I don't like calling them losers, but I guess they are. But here's another thing. We used to call them orphans, and I suppose there's some truth in that. Those people who are looking for a family, looking for a carer, looking for a way in. Like little David Copperfield asking for more from an empty bowl. Sure, they can tug at the heartstrings, but you too will fall into the same bowl that they hope to fill. The orphans. Do you know any? Have you ever come across somebody who is both reluctant to do something but begging to do it at the same time? Yeah, there are people like that. Certainly losers are like that. They will come to you in your business, whatever it might be, and say, well, can you give me something to do? And everything you suggest, they're somewhat reluctant to do. Now, in the extreme form of that, in the criminal world, being a courier is something that somebody should be wanting to do for various reasons. I've explained them before. They want to step into a fantasy world, and some are very good at it. But the born loser will reluctantly but insistently want to do a run. Now, John, where did I see him before I had to intercede? He was supposed to be sitting quietly in a hotel room in Bangkok, waiting for the delivery of the case with the hidden goods. Back in those days, it was in one of the stereo tuner amplifiers. And pretty good for its time. It worked enough. Now, I'd given him certain rules, and let's just see how many he ignored immediately. Plenty. When I arrived at the Montian Hotel, I didn't even get a chance to get into his room or see him before, what they call the floor boys. On each floor, there'd be a member of staff who would kind of, sure, pick up the shoes to be shined, but more than that, they'd keep an eye on things. Now, I'd visited him once before, and there I felt he was at a loose end. I told him to go and see the sights, maybe try and pick up a girl, have a drink in a bar, but not get smashed and get into a fight if he could. Well, the room boy, the floor boy, came up to me and said, "Your friend, I worry for him." Well, I don't know what all that meant, but I soon found out. When I let myself in, I found that John was preparing for his journey in the following way. By buying over-the-counter, sleeping pills down, Mandrax they were at the time, and Rohypnol, and calming himself with, taking a fistful. At that point he was wearing nothing more than the towel from the bathroom, and he'd shaved his head. Rather rapidly, I thought, for there were a few cuts here and there. He was a nervous wreck. Had John prepared in any way for his travels? Gone through the list of things I told him not to take? Address books? Had he gone through his cover story? Had he remembered who to contact should something go wrong? Now, these kind of preparations are normally accepted by we'll call them professional couriers, with good grace. They bear it in mind, but they're confident in their fantasy of whatever they're imagining themselves to be, whether it be, rock star manager or recording producer, movie mogul, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The great Peter Dale used to imagine himself as a sportsman as he travelled. He was very good at it. But not John. You take care of it all, Dave. You take care. He just wanted the future to come. He wanted the next days to disappear. When I checked his luggage, what was in there? Nothing really. No signs that he'd been a tourist or doing any business. Nothing of that kind. The papers that I'd given him as a bit of a cover, somehow lost or coffee stained or drink ringed. He had all the small soaps from the toilet. He had a couple of the towels from the hotel and one of the slippers. What did I do? I backed away. I withdrew him from that operation. And did I learn my lesson? You'd think so, wouldn't you? Why is it that some of us allow the permanent hopeless cases into our lives? Well, we don't say that. We find them a job. But why do they come in at all? How did that happen? There's a bit of a soft spot that I think most people have. Now, some of you might say, well, David, you're in that filthy business you were in. I suppose you felt guilty about the people who couldn't cut their way in the world, and you'd make up good karma points for giving a job to a nitwit. Well, that doesn't really hold. But I must admit, there's always been something about having somebody around who is absolutely loyal and won't talk under pressure. I mean, that was a given. Certainly when I say hopeless case, they're not that hopeless. They wouldn't talk under duress from the police. Not normally, anyway. Well, given time. But we all, I think, unless you're a complete and utter bastard, and, well, my hat off to that, really, in a sense, we have a weakness for allowing people, men and women, into our lives that are really going to drag us down, ruin everything. You make them managers of a shop and it's a mess. You put them in a factory and it comes to a standstill. Here's the thing. You have to take a different approach to this. Okay, have a soft spot. Feel that the people who've been passed over in life but are earnest, good-hearted, somehow nice guys, good-hearted women, they deserve something, don't they? Well, I suppose they do. But what? Here's what you can do. For those kind of people that you know are hopeless cases, well, if you're wise, they don't actually know your telephone number. If you're wise, they certainly don't know your address. They might share some mutual friends, but hopefully they won't pass on too close a connection. Now, that kind, if you pass on the street, take out 200. It doesn't matter 200 what? $200, 200 pounds, 200 shekels. Not Krugerrands, but around that amount. Give it to them. Oh, it's just a loan, Dave. Yeah, okay, fine. But it's a loan you never want back. That kills it. That is really the best. But then there's another kind. Maybe an old school friend, somebody who goes way back. Somebody already a bit too much part of your life. Do you get them to work in your business? Do you get them to fix up something around your house? After all, just about all of the hopeless cases feel they're quite good with their hands. They feel they can build things. They're good at construction. They can wire a plug or even screw in a light bulb. Now, beware of that. You don't really have any work in the... Well, even if you had a construction company, you wouldn't want them there. But you don't have work where you want them in your house. Don't let them in. I know they've just got some girlfriend and she doesn't speak English very well, but they want to come around. No, don't let them in any way in your business. So what happens next? The good-hearted but utterly hopeless person will have many ideas. They will feel with great certainty that life has treated them badly and they've simply been unlucky. They will have suggestions for business enterprises. Now, they don't mean to deceive you completely and keep drawing money out on a failed enterprise until it just can't go any further. This is a problem. You know perfectly well that they intend to repay you. They hope to make a success and kind of prove to you how good they can be. But just face up to it, they never will be. Don't back their business. The answer, again, is simply charity. Give them a little bit of money, but nothing tangible, nothing which would allow the hook to come in. This might sound quite cruel, but I have learnt in 64 years that people who are, well, greatly sentimental are actually very selfish. You might find a certain sentimentality in gamblers too. Those risk-takers of that kind, when they know there's no payoff, when the house always win, do you know why they do it? Because they feel they're special. They know or believe in their hearts that they were destined for something great. And if only they had the right contacts. Now, that is going to be you, and why? Because you've had some success. You live well, you eat well, you take your holidays, but when you strip it down, it's really only that you're normal people. You work hard and you get something for it. This sentimental loser wants in. Now, the very worst case is the vague personal assistant. Remember, if they couldn't do anything properly in their own lives, they won't do anything properly for you. Stop being sentimental about it. And believe me, when you strip away the veneer of friendliness and good-heartedness, there's actually a rather cruel centre. For I did the same mistake again with the lamentable Billy Green, the Liverpudlian boxer. When he volunteered me to the police in Pakistan, he spilled everything. He left no detail out. You know why? Because he wanted to pal up to the cops by that stage. He was in trouble, and he knew that giving everything of himself would be what seemed to work for him when he conned me. That loyalty. But it's not really there. Think about the born losers and the hopeless cases. When it came to it, they didn't actually do anything that was not entirely in self-interest. I know it didn't seem otherwise, and it might seem very harsh to strip all that away. But if somebody has in any way your interests as theirs, they consider those things. So don't be fooled. It's a kind of a con, really, a sentimental con. Not the kind that you could almost respect, a professional con artist. We might come to that soon. But the born loser's con. It's tragic, but stick to that rule. I've told you before, and I know you've done it again. Okay, you backed away just in time. But keep it there. Okay, you might have the odd born loser in your family, but at least that's a shared problem. The charity can be spread around. And you're stuck with that family after all. Which I guess reminds me to make a bit of a distinction here. The hopeless case will have a recognizable trait by something pleasant and happy in the face. Yet the eyes rather pinpointy, if you know what I mean. The kind of intense look of a true believer in something, always himself, but the kind of look a Christian gives you when trying to get you to take some publication. They're kind of looking at your forehead, somehow never in focus. You find yourself shifting around to try and meet their gaze, but the gaze is always inward. Whereas the more professional con artist, well, why am I even talking about them? They come up from time to time. You sense them coming. You know there's something not right. Do they have any use at all? Well, in a sense, extraordinarily rarely. But yes, there are possible ways of handling that. It is said that most conmen wear beards. Well, oddly enough, yes. But that's not to say that everybody with a beard is a flim-flam artist. But I think everybody with a beard, frankly, is wearing a bit of a mask. Oh, just can't be bothered shaving. Doesn't want to deal with people. Oh, look at Stanley Kubrick, the great director, always wore a beard, but he did that because he couldn't be bothered shaving, had other things to do. But just about all of the con men I've met somehow seem to sport a bit of facial hair. Mask wearers, hiding other personalities. I suppose, in a way, a bit like the traditional policeman's moustache. Yeah, in the force they don't really encourage, or didn't encourage, beards, so the moustache was what they could get away with, so there was an awful lot of them running around the 70s and 80s. But people who put something over their face are always masking. They're trying to conceal something from you. Not a very unique tip, but the beginnings of it. I have told this story before about a pretty obvious con man who saved my life, in a sense. I'd been arrested in Bangkok in 1993, just before Christmas. I'd been in prison for a decade. I'd been in the drug wars. I'd lost everything, not just property, but I'd lost a wife through my carelessness. She was killed in a prison fire. I was released from prison, chased around by more police, fled the country under double passports, and then through circumstances which you can read about in Unforgiving Destiny if you wish, but I ended up in the Bangkok prison. Now, I really had enough. I wanted death, but you can't kill yourself there. And I didn't get the privacy. I was even trying to escape, not to get away, but to find a very quiet, very tall place to go and throw myself off a roof. Dusatani Hotel was my choice. Very slippery rooftop, I came to know. Anyway, the Bostonian con artist there, I knew he was fleecing me. But he gave me such hope. It pulled me through. Yeah, all his schemes of arranging bail, getting medical certificates, what else was it? Oh, some kind of judge payoff. Oh, for that he'd need money, and he even said if he didn't have enough, he'd go and run some drugs as well. I mean, you can imagine how that would go. Sure, over a period of about a year, I suppose he fleeced my friends and myself for $70,000-$80,000. But I could never really get angry with him because he pulled me out of it. So there we are. That's an example of a con artist doing something useful, unintentionally. And I should say, he was one of the better ones, if only in this sense. He believed what he was saying. The good ones believe they will pay you back. Only the really extraordinarily savage psychopaths intend from the outset to leave you with nothing. There's a few of those around. But that's really quite a complicated layering there when you're dealing with the professional bullshitter. There's some rules to that one, but this is not what today's about. This is about the people that are somehow attractive and you want to do something for them. Remember, the only thing you can do for them without destroying yourself is charity. Assuage your conscience. Reach into that pocket. Pull out anything that feels like a bit of a wad of money. Yes, their eyes will light up. And true, like certain beggars on the street, they will feel, this is just the beginning. But it won't be. Be firm. Send them on their way with a email address that goes nowhere. Or even a real one, if you like to be amused. But it will just be sad in the end. So just keep your distance. Oh, I just referred to something too. That is, giving somebody slippery money and their eyes light up because they see greater things coming. That happened to me once in Tottenham Court Road. There was a beggar there. Not too unusual, but a little so. It was around Christmas when I came across this beggar. She was, did she have the baby? Oh, yes, I think she did. She was on a particular patch. I think she'd been assigned that patch. She was about 24, looked a little bit scruffy. They don't overdress. Not entirely too clean. That's part of the act. And the kid was pretty docile. I think the baby had worked about 4 shifts for different mothers that day, so was having a good snooze in its little bassinet. I gave her £5. Now, normally the beggars get coins, and I'm only going on about this because of what happened next. When I gave her a banknote instead of coins, I could see a look upon her face of, wait a minute. Part of my training said to react to this. Yes, if the mug gives you paper money, don't leave it at that. Just don't think it's a good moment and go on. No, you know you've got a complete sap there, so work it hard. So she did. She magnified her housing problems, her life on the streets, everything that could conceivably be wrong, the illness of herself and the poor bub. It was starting to wake up. I think he felt like he'd done his shift. But I did catch that look, and I said to her, look, I know you've been trained to go further when you see somebody stupidly giving you more money than usual. But that's not what this is about. It's just before Christmas, and, well, just don't share so much with whoever is controlling this pitch, this part of the street. You know, go independent. I just had to get away. But she was on the way to being professional. But on the street is not any kind of professionalism. I think, yeah, well, I'll tell you of some of the more professional ones at the next airing of Dodgy People, how to spot them, and what to do about them. So, all round, watch that soft spot you've got. Don't let them in, but do your little bit and make yourself feel better. You can't help the hopeless case. Until soon. See you then.